We started LiveKit right in the middle of the pandemic. We grew really fast. We had a lot of big companies that started to use it.
Product market fit right from the get-go.
But we didn't have a product. I mean, we had an open source project. I got pinged by a really large cloud provider. And they're like, can we buy you?
Oh.
Can we license LiveKit Cloud? Or maybe we'll just kill you with open source.
Oh. You're the accidental AI company.
Wow, I didn't think you were going to open it with that. But yes. Yes, we are.
Jumping right into it.
Dude,
Yeah.
right in. Let's go.
How did that happen?
Oh, man, that's a crazy story. I've told it once on a podcast, but I'll tell it again since you probably have a bigger audience than they do.
I think you're overestimating me.
Yeah,
My
maybe.
mom listens to this podcast, and that's about it.
I can tell you a funny story. My mom listens to a lot of podcasts.
This one?
Not this one, probably. She's a huge fan, though, of Dylan Patel.
Oh, I just interviewed him yesterday.
Did you?
That's so funny, yeah.
It's so
And
crazy.
The sad part is that this machine right here crapped out 10 minutes in, so it wasn't a podcast, it was a conversation.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's so smart.
he is.
My mom told me he's so smart. He wasn't necessarily demonstrating how smart he was when we were talking, but you should put this part in too.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dylan. I can tell you a funny story about Dylan too. He'll be mad though if I tell you that story on air.
Off air.
Off air, we'll talk about that. He's awesome though. So how do we become an AI company? So LiveKit's been on kind of a journey. We started LiveKit right in the middle of the pandemic, kind of towards the start, 2020. Pandemic was a weird time in the world. You couldn't leave your house, right? And the only way you could connect with other people was through the internet.
Yeah.
And the way people did that predominantly was using a camera and a microphone on their computer, right? It turns out that when you go to do that, like transmit data from your camera and your microphone, the internet, as we mostly have known it for the last 30 years, wasn't designed for that. HTTP stands for...
Ooh, you're testing my knowledge, huh? No idea.
It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol.
Yeah, I never would have got that.
So it was designed for you to transfer text, HTML, which is just text, over a network. It wasn't called Hyper Voice Transfer Protocol, Hyper Video
Yeah, it
Transfer
needed to be.
And during the pandemic, we needed a protocol for transferring data over a network that was richer than text, audio and video data from your camera and your microphone. And so there is another protocol for doing that called WebRTC,
Yeah.
but it's just not commonly used. Up until leading right up to the pandemic, there were really only 3 apps at scale that were using that protocol: Google Meet, Discord, and Zoom. And so Zoom uses a kind of a custom version of it. So it should be no surprise that when the pandemic hit, those are the 3 apps that everyone was using, because they were the only 3
They were
ones that were
working.
they were the ones designed for this kind of world we found ourselves in. But if you were a developer that was trying to build your own application that needed real-time audio and video, you had to build a ton of infrastructure yourself. Think of it as like you didn't have Stripe for this kind of need. You had to go build all of this stuff yourself to interface directly with the payment gateway. In our world here, we're talking about with networks, raw kind of network protocols. And so I discovered this limitation of how much I would have to build myself by actually working on a side project during the pandemic. I was working on a Clubhouse for companies. When Clubhouse was
Oh my
kind of...
God, Clubhouse.
I know, right?
Forgot about that.
Throwback.
Very pandemic.
And so I was trying to build a Clubhouse for companies, and I had to build all of this infrastructure myself to actually ship the product. And so I'm like, maybe this infrastructure that I had to build myself could be valuable to other people. So I pinged my, now co-founder, David. We had done a company before that and sold it to Medium. And so I pinged him and I said, hey, I want to build this side project, but I also think it'd be cool if we could give this infrastructure away to other developers so that they can use it. And that was what turned into LiveKit. It was an open source project that built real-time audio video streaming infrastructure in a world where you needed to connect with other humans over the internet, and it was very hard to do so, or build an application that needed to do so. And so that's how we started. We grew really fast. We had a lot of like big companies that started to use it, Spotify and Adobe and eBay and Oracle and all this stuff.
So product market fit right from the get-go?
It was product market fit almost from the get-go, but we didn't have a product. I mean, we had an open source project.
Yeah, okay.
But we didn't have a commercial product. And so we decided, hey, like these big companies are using us. Let's go talk to them and find out why. And what they said was like, hey, we love the product you've built. We can see your code. Clearly, you guys are good programmers, or my co-founder is, maybe not me so much. Full credit to him. But can we have a commercial product? Like, we don't want to deploy and scale this ourselves. We want you to deploy and scale this for us and run a network, and we'll pay you money. So we said, okay, well, that's a path to continue working on this for the long run, so why don't we do it? So we raised some money and we started working on this LiveKit cloud system, which is like this global network for streaming audio and video. I won't go too much into the details of it because that's not really the question you asked me. Is how do we become an AI company? But I promise this part is kind of relevant. So we launched the cloud product at the end of 2022. And at the end of 2022, ChatGPT, the website, comes out.
Oh.
And I'm like, wow, this GPT-3 model is like so good, or 3.5 is so good. It feels like I'm texting with a human. I'm like, what if I took LiveKit and I paired it with this website, and like I combine the two things together, run chat.openai.com in a puppeteer session, a headless browser, and then like take the speech, convert it into text, pipe it into the headless browser, into like the div tag, hit the submit button.
You're so ahead of your time,
right?
dude.
Like, what if I
Wow.
jerry-rig this thing together where you could talk to ChatGPT instead of text with it? Voice AI wasn't a space, right? I think DeepGram had been around, but I put out this demo, I tweet it, and I'm like, I'm for sure going viral. Like,
you felt it in your bones.
I'm like, this is her, like Samantha from Her. I'm definitely going viral, except without the voice. And and it just goes nowhere. Nobody notices. Well, 90 people faved it, so maybe 90 people noticed, but definitely didn't go viral. So I was pretty disappointed. Fast forward 5 months later, there's a really long, amazing story that I won't tell because it'll take a long time. Something happened in that morning that was pretty interesting, and now I'm like teasing it.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just cut it out if it's too long.
Yeah, we got full director's cut.
I got pinged by a really large cloud provider I think it was August 4th, 2023. So 5 months after I put out this demo, I get pinged by a large cloud provider, and they're like, I go have lunch with them for 5 hours. And they're like, can we buy you?
Whoa.
Can we license LiveKit Cloud and deploy our own network? Or maybe we'll just kill you with open source.
Oh.
And I'm like, damn,
Dude.
That's usually what happens after 7 years. It's happening after 2. I was like, I'm flattered and I'm also terrified. And so they say, well,
Brutal.
They're like, look, I'm like, oh, how much would you offer? Just curious, maybe I'll sell. Who knows? What's the number? And they're like, 20 mil. And I'm like,
Not a bad payout.
not
For
bad.
a 2-year project?
But we'd raised 15.
Oh, okay.
So I was like,
not the best outcome.
Not going to be the best. So sorry, guys. They're like, wait. They're like, look, if you can somehow tie what you're doing, this audio, video, streaming stuff, if you can tie it to Gen AI,
No. You're like, you didn't see my tweet.
200.
200 million.
If I could tie it to Gen AI. And I said, dude, that's ridiculous that you said that. And I can't tie it to Gen AI. I have no way. We're a video conferencing live streaming company. I didn't think about my demo.
No.
So I leave this meeting. Co-founder and I are talking. David and I are talking. We're like terrified. This large company's coming after us. What do we do? And we're like, okay, I guess we just got to move fast. That's the only advantage we have. Driving home after, during rush hour, I get this email that comes in and it says, hello from OpenAI. And I jump on a call with them.
They found you because of what you had
And
been
they're
doing.
like, we found your blog post. and the demo you built that you tweeted. And we have been wanting to build a voice interface to ChatGPT. And so 3 weeks ago, we signed up with a personal Gmail. Sita knows us. This is the content right here.
Yeah, serendipity.
And we love the platform, and now we want to build this thing for real and ship it. And so I was like, what? Okay.
Wait, you still didn't connect the 200 million at that point? You were like,
No.
I gotta go back to those guys.
You know what's funny? I say now that I did, and I'm like, wait, I have a Gen AI story. I didn't really, actually. I didn't connect it. I don't know. I think I was too, like, just mind blown. What's also interesting is that, so we got in a month of building this with them, and we shipped voice mode in September, the first version of it before advanced and all of the GPT-4o and all of that stuff. And in that moment was when I realized that this is an AI company. And the realization, and the soundbite exists everywhere in other places too, because I've said it a lot. The realization was, oh man, OpenAI wants to build AGI. AGI, in my opinion, is a human-like computer. It's a synthetic human. If we're successful and get all the way there, synthetic human. How are you going to interact with a synthetic human?
You're going to talk to it.
You're going to interact the way that humans interact, like how we're interacting.
Yeah.
And we use eyes, ears, and mouths predominantly to interact with one another. The equivalent sensors, the equivalent senses for a computer, how it gets that information, are cameras, microphones, speakers.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that LiveKit, which was built for connecting humans to other humans using cameras, microphones, and speakers, you can swap out one of the humans, because all of a sudden that computer is now human-like, and you can use the same technology to connect a human to a machine. And so if OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini and the labs are going to build the brain, LiveKit has an opportunity to build the nervous system, to carry signals to and from that brain wherever they originate.
Wow. And
with ultra low latency. And so then I was like, wow, this could be, it has a good shot of being a core piece of like infrastructure that is the backbone of multimodal AI. And in the future, you won't have to qualify it as multimodal AI. It'll just be AI, right? Because that's where this is all going to go. Once the model gets smart enough and capable enough, it's all going to be multimodal. So that's how we became an AI company.
I was not expecting that. When I asked the question, I did not think that it was going that deep, but what a story. What a way to just live serendipitously and recognize that.
It's crazy.
You just rode the wave, man.
You know what? Justin Kahn is a friend and an investor, first check actually into LiveKit.
And he was the guy that started
Twitch.
Justin TV, right?
Yeah, Justin TV, which became Twitch.
Twitch.
And we were just talking about this the other day, where Emmett, one of his co-founders, who is the CEO of Twitch, very briefly, maybe the CEO of OpenAI.
Oh my God, I remember that too.
But
so many dramas.
I once ran into Emmett at a party in YC in the early days. And I had taken a job at 23andMe, and anyway, that's not really part of the story. I ran into Emmett at a YC party in the early days, and I was asking him, how was Justin TV going? It wasn't Twitch yet. And he was like, we're doing great. We're running these interactive ads for horror movies. We're getting paid. But then there's this other thing going on Justin TV, which is everyone keeps streaming StarCraft videos. So we're thinking about doubling down on people streaming StarCraft videos. And, that became Twitch. And throughout my whole career as an entrepreneur, I've just been like, why the heck can't that happen to me? Why can't I get lucky where people just start to use something in a way that I never predicted, and then I can just ride the wave into success? Yeah. You can't engineer that, right? And so it's kind of surreal, honestly, that it ended up happening. Because I've been thinking about why can't I just have that happen? Why can't I get lucky? And then it ended up happening. It's wild.
Maybe there's things that now you're like, okay, I've seen this 5 times and it works out in the end, so I'm not going to be so stressed about it.
I think it's interesting because it's like my 5th company. And I have a lot of learnings from the previous ones. But I think the learning that I have can be kind of like distilled down into one important point. It's not even necessarily that I've seen it play out and I missed something, more so that the thing that I didn't do with my previous companies was I did not think long term. Always think long term when you're doing something, right? What kind of value are creating long term? What kind of movement are you attaching yourself to long term? In the past, I've kind of optimized for more reactive things like, how do I compete with this other person? Or how do I position myself around what is like the zeitgeist at this moment and build for that, right?
Wait, you
Or,
guys don't have an MCP server?
you know what, we actually might, but I
do, don't you?
I don't know.
But that's not what you're talking about.
We might. That's not what I'm talking about,
And that's not what stresses you, I imagine. Whether or not you have an MCP server isn't something that keeps you up at night these days.
It's not. And for what it's worth, Shane built the MCP server if we have one. So blame him. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't part of the conversation. So it's all about him. We're going to talk about that later, actually, because he's not thinking long term. I'm just kidding. Hi, Shane. No, but Shane's awesome, by the way. But
sounds like
yeah. But like, we've always optimized in my past companies like around some kind of like myopic or small or near term thing. What we did differently this time was we actually didn't start LiveKit to be a company, right? We started it as an open source project
because you had a pain.
Because we had a pain. And I actually this is the truth. DZ, my co-founder, and I, we thought that we were going to build a Bitcoin wallet.
DZ sounds like a Bitcoin name. Let's be honest.
And I think he puts like Bitcoin Maxi in his like his Twitter bio. Maybe he does. I don't know. But
perfectly.
If he doesn't, he is a Bitcoin Maxi. So don't talk to him about crypto. You'll never hear the end of it. But hi, DZ. He's awesome too. But no, we were like, you know what? We want to work in crypto. Crypto's getting hot again. See, not thinking long term.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, like, we don't really have a good crypto idea. So we'll like just try to build some value for people. Hey, you know what? Like, we're in this pandemic and people need to like use audio and video a lot. Why don't we make that infrastructure easier for developers? We've been developers. We've benefited from open source. Why don't we give it back and like build something so that they can go faster? And so that was really what it was. We're like, there's going to be more video on the internet, not less. The internet's going to get more real time, not less real time. And so that's truly like how we started. And then when the AI stuff happened, we said, okay, well, we have this magical LLM technology, right? We now have a probabilistic computer. That's like kind of like a raw material. How are you going to interact with that raw material? How do you harness it and like leverage it in an application and deliver that value to users and scale it? And so it turns out that you need a lot of infrastructure around, like, a lot of deterministic, regular old code infrastructure around this like statistical or probabilistic or stochastic computer to really leverage it and harness it. And so that's kind of been our guiding light, is we're going to build all of that infrastructure, all of that muck, so that developers who are building apps that need to use this magical technology don't need to.
Yeah.
And
you're the rock.
Yeah.
And then everything else
The
can be a
foundation
little bit more
for it.
fungible.
Yeah. And so I think long term is the big lesson that I've had.
Is there a place where you are doubling down your bets right now?
Yeah, for sure. We now, the way I like, even if you go to our website, like, we pitch the platform a little bit differently because we are kind of all in on AI infrastructure. It's not that video conferencing and live streaming companies don't use us. They still do. But every product is trying to figure out, how does AI fit into my product and how can it make my product better? And so even video conferencing and live streaming is going to have AI as part of it. So we're really focused on AI infrastructure. What I say now is we're kind of building the platform for voice, video, and physical AI, right? The other way that I say it is, you can now give your application an ability it never had before. It can see, it can hear, it can speak, and in the robotics case, it can move. And So what's interesting about where we are today, I just gave you the pitch or the one-liner, but what's interesting about where we are is that we actually don't have the complete platform yet. We're not a complete product. I'm like kind of anti-selling our stuff, right? Maybe I should be doing something different, but the honest truth is we don't have a complete product yet. We have the transport network, which is how we started pre-AI. Then with OpenAI, we built this agents framework, which allows you to orchestrate and build voice agents. And you can think of that as like our Next.js, right? For voice agents. So we have the Next.js and we have the network that when you build an agent using our Next.js, it can connect to our network and stream the audio and video. That's nice. But in the middle, you have like some gaps. Like, so when you build your voice agent using our framework, how do you test and evaluate that framework? How do you know what it's doing? Right? Or if it's doing the right thing or the intended thing. And then once you have a statistical confidence that it's doing the right thing, how do you deploy it and scale it and load balance? Right? Because voice agents are not web applications. They are stateful. They're always running for as long as the session is running. They're constantly processing voice and generating voice. So it's not like a connect, send some data, do a database operation, disconnect kind of thing. It's stateful and always on. And so how do you deploy and load balance something like that? It's just a different paradigm. Then, of course, you have the run part of it. Like, so you deploy it. Now, how do you run it? That's our network infrastructure. That's our telephony infrastructure. And then on the end, it's like, once you're running it, how do you observe it? Where's the Datadog or the New Relic for voice AI? So
Shout out to Tom. That's, I think, another great member of your team
Tom,
who I
yes.
know is very deep
I
on
want to say
that.
something bad about Tom and then say he's awesome afterward, but
Yeah, we got to.
I have nothing bad to say about Tom. Tom's amazing. And so building that end-to-end platform is really what we're trying to do, right? Like, and it's not because we are dreaming it up and it's like, this is what everyone needs. And if we build that, they will come, Field of Dreams style. It's because like our community and users are literally asking for this stuff every day. They're like, I built this agent. I'm running this agent on the network. It's working great, but like, I'm struggling with deploying it. So we're working on a hosting product. I'm struggling with testing and evaluating. So we're looking at partnering with people who are working in the evaluation space, right? But also we're exploring whether we should do some stuff ourselves around evaluation that works really well within the LiveKit ecosystem. And then on the observability side, we're like, okay, well, how do we monitor this stuff? People want visibility into these systems to know what are the user experiences like that they're having with my application. And so we're kind of trying to tackle all of these things and build that kind of all-in-one platform so that you can go from zero to shipping and scaling and production and making money and building a successful business, all with using LiveKit, that foundation.
Yeah, you just plug in and then you're golden.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that vision. And so now it's doubling down on the platform ecosystem.
Yes, 100%.
Dude, so cool.
You should pitch this. I think it was better. You said it like in like 10 seconds and I
didn't have that
I took like 2 minutes. Wow. That's easy to do.
Yeah. One thing I do think about voice, which is fascinating, is how much of a rich medium it is and how many signals you can get from voice, which is very unlike text.
I mean, you're right about all those things, right?
Thank you.
So voice is fundamentally higher bandwidth than text, right? It carries more data, it's more dense per packet, let's say, right? Or per byte. And the reason why is because it's carrying more information, right? Voice data has prosody and intonation and a cadence, all kinds of these aspects of sound that humans like automatically pick up on and can change the semantics of what you're saying, right? The way you say something absolutely matters. Maybe not as much as what you say, but it definitely makes a difference, right? In interpretability or how that information is perceived by your brain, right? On the receiving end. And so the other part about this is like, so yes, that's kind of just the law of physics of voice. And it simultaneously makes it an amazing medium for interaction and a very natural medium. I mean, this is what we've been doing for thousands and thousands of years, right? Is using voice to communicate ideas to one another. But it also makes it incredibly difficult to build a synthetic, human-like experience in code that matches the fidelity of like a human-like conversation. And so I think a lot of possibility, which is exciting, but also it requires a lot of experimentation to get right. And there's a lot of moving pieces in between. As you said, like our framework tries to reduce the amount of entropy in the system by handling a lot of things for you, like interruptions and turn taking and the low latency back and forth streaming of the data. But then you also have things like transcriptions and the quality of those when you turn that voice into text, and you have the brain piece of it, the LLM. Is it going to understand those prompts in the way that you want them to?
Is it going to call that tool correctly?
Exactly. Is it going to call that tool reliably? How long does that tool call take? Do you generate a response in the middle so that people don't think that you're waiting forever? It's like there are all these aspects, conversational dynamics and reliability aspects of a conversation that if you don't get it right, then you fall into this like uncanny valley, and then people kind of reject it. And I think what also makes it even more difficult is the thresholds for when someone rejects it or doesn't think it's useful are very use case dependent. So if you are building, for example, if you're building like patient intake at a hospital, we've just been talking to a company. I'll give them a shout out. We've been talking to Assort Health. They're a user of LiveKit. They're awesome. They're growing. They're amazing. One thing that we were talking to them about was around latency. And they're like, we're like, like the latency, how do you feel if we got that latency even lower? I don't know, it's maybe coming in at like a second or something for full kind of turns, or maybe around 750 milliseconds, somewhere in that range, 750 to a minute to a second, for, time between AI speaking to you, you speaking to it, the turn latency. And they said, honestly, for our use case, it doesn't matter. They're like, when people are on the phone that are like doing patient intake at a hospital, they don't really care if it takes a second or 2 seconds. They just want to get an appointment on the doctor's calendar, and they want to talk about the issue that they're having. And like, whether it's like super fast, like, look, if it takes 5 seconds or 10 seconds, yeah, it's going to be a problem. But the distance between like, 200 versus 500 versus a second versus 2 seconds, they're like, what we have found is sometimes the LLMs take a while to respond. Not a LiveKit problem, just want to say. But sometimes they take a while to respond, the LLM. And so it does once in a while hit 2.5 seconds. They actually don't see any drop off from that.
But if you think about a human doing the same thing, there's a lot of times where I wait on the phone.
Yeah, for sure.
Because somebody is writing something down or they're pulling something up on a computer. So it's not like we're unused to, it's not an unnatural behavior.
So that is true, but there are use cases where there are high sensitivity to latency. I'll give an example, and then I'll talk about a technique. So for language learning, Speak is another company. They build immersive language learning. So if you want to learn how to speak a different language, you can kind of have like an experience where you're talking to a native speaker of that language, and it feels very conversational, like you're in their country and you're talking to them. And they use LiveKit for this, and latency is very sensitive there because like it's supposed to feel like a human conversation. And so if you're not responding very quickly, it starts to feel unnatural, right? And it breaks the experience or the believability of the experience. That's the uncanny valley, I guess. And so for that use case, latency does matter a lot. What's interesting about what you said about how in like a use case like customer support or patient intake, the person is like looking up information or doing something on their computer, and then they respond after a while. What's interesting is, yes, that is true, but usually you're getting some kind of nonverbal feedback.
You're hearing papers in the background.
You're hearing paper in the background. You're hearing keys clacking, or they're saying, you know what, I'm going to do something. Can I put you on hold for a second? Or they're saying, oh, let me see, like, and so either non-lexical or actual lexical responses that are coming back very, very quickly. And then you're primed. Okay, I'm going to wait. And so if you just hear silence,
you go crazy.
That's the part that is like, wait, this isn't
Is it
a human.
working? Did it on?
This isn't
Yeah,
right. Is it broken?
That's funny.
Let me ask again. So, you know where this is becoming a thing that people are starting to think about is in reasoning models, because Anthropic's model and some of the other models now, they don't have like a separate reasoning and then a separate like regular single shot LLM. Is they have thinking tokens and a thinking budget, and you can apply like a certain amount of thought to different kind of operations or prompts. And you're like, well, if I'm going to like apply a high thinking budget, how do I build voice AI around a reasoning model that can like dynamically think for different periods of time? Well, my recommendation is you need to figure out how do you respond and what do you respond with immediately before you trigger, or in parallel with triggering kind of like a thinking process.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I was talking to Elliot, who runs Voca, and they do something similar where
I'm actually meeting with the Voca guys tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, for coffee.
They're in Paris.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm hanging with them for coffee.
He's one of the deepest thinkers on conversational design
Awesome.
that I have talked to.
Yeah.
And he's done some really fun stuff where he said, we put background noises in so that it feels more human. You know, you don't want just like a voice agent there that you can't hear anything else except for the voice. And then he also said that they will intentionally make the agent a little bit like dumber, quote unquote, because the human tends to enunciate more and they tend to be a lot more forgiving and say what they want in a very articulate way when they think that like, oh, this is just some like shitty AI.
Oh, wow.
And so
human empathy.
Exactly.
Right.
It's so funny. It's like this trick. It's such a nice little hack that you have. And what he was saying too was, yeah, you have to mention that you're thinking or you're doing something, that action is being taken if you're making someone wait.
Yes.
Because otherwise they think that it just went offline.
Right. There has to be that feedback that you get, right? To kind of, prime your mind as to what's happening, right? Even if you can't see what's happening, like hearing it over the phone, you need some signal.
Dude, I think that's perfect way to end it. Is there anything else that you wanted to hit on that we didn't talk about?
No, it's great, man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Love chatting.
This is very cool.
Yeah,
I appreciate you doing this.